Hey, welcome to another episode of Transformed and Renewed. Tonight we're going to be talking about is sugar good or bad for you? But before we jump into tonight's topic, I want you to make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button if this is your first time checking our channel out. And if you are returning, make sure you show us some love because I do appreciate your feedback and you taking time to join us. So, again, if this is your first time, welcome and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so that way you can stay up to date with the latest content. So, tonight's topic is centered around sugar. Is it good or is it bad for you? And one thing that kind of led me to discussing this topic is because I know that for this month being the month of Valentine's, you have different people who love to go out and acquire sweets. And most people typically consume sweets every day, especially for breakfast. And some people even have a time where they, every night or for dessert, sometime of the day, they got to get a sweet treat. And so, one thing that I really want to discuss is, of course, the meaning of sugar. And so, when it comes to sugar, one thing that I will tell you is that all sugars are not created equal. Okay. And so, I know most people, when they hear sugar, they think that it's pretty much all encompassing, but that's not true. And I want to do my best to share some information with you so that way, as you move forward, you can make some wise decisions and approaches. So when it comes to sugars, like I said, they're not created equal because you have two forms of sugar. You have the simple sugars and then you have the complex sugars. And so when it comes to simple sugars, you have glucose, fructose, and then you also have the lactose. Okay, glucose, fructose, and galactose. So I have to look at it because I was just looking at it shortly. And then you have sucrose, which is pretty much composed of glucose, fructose. Then you have lactose, which is composed of glucose and galactose. And then you have maltose, which is composed of two glucose units. Okay. And so when it comes to fructose, you can find that in fruits, honey, lactose, you can find that in dairy products, but typically it's in cows, so the milk sugar. And then when we think about sucrose, that is going to be the simplest form of sugar. So you think of cane sugar, raw sugar. I want to say, I think agave nectar, if I'm not mistaken. These are going to just be simple sugars in its simplest forms. And then you also have, what's the other one? You have maltose, yes. For, off the top of my head, thinking about it a lot. But those are simple sugars. But that's not my main focus, but that is to show you kind of like the basic structure of it. But then when it comes to, like I said, you have simple sugars, and then you have your complex sugars, and these are going to be more so in the form of starches and fiber or digestible fiber. So when we think about this, because I really want you to get this picture, most sugars that people tend to consume are going to be in the form of candy, sweets, ice cream, etc. Sometimes it can even be fried. So you may have had a donut, or you may have had something similar. It could have been a packaged sweet. Whatever the case it was, if you looked on the package, you would see underneath carbohydrates, you have several columns, but one is going to be added sugar. And when it comes to added sugar versus sugar that is naturally occurring in the product, one thing that you'll notice is that added sugar can deliver an instant or a fairly quick spike in your blood sugar. And why this is important is because the more you consume a lot of added sugars without doing anything, so if you don't do anything to resolve that, you just continue to consume more added sugars, what ends up happening is that your body has to find a place to do something with it. It's kind of like me filling up this room and I'm not doing anything about space. Because if I'm not making space, if I'm not making adjustments, then that means that has to go somewhere. And so in your body can only use so much glucose, okay? Which is why you have blood glucose in your body. This is your blood sugar. And so your body can only use up so much at a time, especially if you are sedentary, which means that you are sitting or you're idle for times throughout the day. This could be 30 minutes to an hour, but whatever the case is, if you are idle more throughout the day than you are active, then that can be a problem, especially if that tends to be more than 50% of the time a day and even a week. So we have to think about this. If I'm consuming a lot of added sugars, and coming back to that, when you have natural sugars, these are going to be more complex, which means that they deliver a slow, but yet it's going to be a steady increase. So as you are doing activities, even if you are sitting idle, these are going to deliver slow, but yet steady spikes in your blood sugar. Not as high, but these could kind of go like this and then kind of go back down. But then when you introduce added sugars a lot, they can tend to go up spiking. So sometimes you may see people who feel like they have to crash or they just crashed, in terms of that expression. And that means that you pretty much had a spike in your blood sugar, but again, you have to do something about that. But when we don't do anything about that, that can create issues. And I'm sure you've likely heard of diseases such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, etc., or high blood pressure. And these having a high level of blood sugar in your body can lead to these. Now, I'm not saying that blood or having high levels of blood sugar alone or consuming a lot of added sugars alone is the culprit, but it has a part that it plays because you do have to consider other things such as saturated fats, sodium, which we'll cover at a later time. But today we want to focus on sugars because, when I look at, news statistics, even with the CDC, one thing that I've noticed that is constant is that, more kids, I want to say it was like a third, depending on the region, but I think it was actually Texas that I was looking at, where they said that about a third are lacking in getting enough fruits. And I know that Texas is not alone. There are other states throughout the United States where people are not getting enough of the right foods. And again, one thing when it comes to a lot of added sugars is they are pretty much simple, which means they are stripped. They are in their simplest forms. On the other hand, when you think about complex sugars, again, these are going to typically be in the form of starches or digestible fiber. But one thing about consuming whole foods such as fruits and vegetables, because these, once they are broken down to simple sugars, but they also contain a lot more, such as minerals, vitamins, um, even vitamins and minerals that you may not even see on the label or even any packaging. So if I had one, I would show you. But let's just say, for example, if you had an orange or an apple or just any fruit or vegetable, it didn't have any package on it or any labeling on it. But if I were to tell you that, hey, if that was edible like an apple, you can pretty much eat everything except for the seeds and the core, because they may not go well if you consume that. But I do know if you consume the skin and the flesh, there are a lot of nutrients. Number one, the skin, which is fibrous, and this actually helps with your digestion. But a lot of foods that you consume that are starchy or fibrous, they actually help, which I like to refer to as like fillers, because these are going to help you to feel fuller, longer without adding the extra calories. So think about that. The next time that you are craving some sweets, I want you to compare the caloric intake per serving to that of a carb that you can actually eat, such as fruit. If you wash it, clean it, but if you were to consume even let's say 2 servings of a fruit. So let's say you consume 2 servings of apples. You'll realize that that apple contains less carbs, compared to the sweet that you wanted. Or even if it was a small sweet, about similar, if not less than that bar. Okay. So again, like I said, when it comes to sugars, it depends. When we ask the question of is it good or bad? If we were talking about added sugars, it may not be the best. Now, I'm not going to say that you should avoid it, it's dangerous for you. I will say in large portions it is. And to be honest, when you're actually consuming a healthy diet, you really don't have a a big need for it, I would say, because to me, just for example, I've actually made a fruit bowl this past week, and it was actually good. I'm being honest, like it was good. Grapes, pineapples, strawberries, and kiwi. Sliced them up, fresh, tasted good. Even cut up some mangoes not too long ago. But when it comes to those fruits, you can consume those. And, a person may say, well, what about the sugar content? Well, it's mostly carbs and it's also, I mean, of course, carbs, but it's also going to be in the form of starch or digestible fiber, depending on the type of fruit it is. But usually, if it's flesh, it's going to be, typically in a form to where it's going to be complex, which means it's going to take a minute for it to actually break down. So you can consume fruit, and it's actually important that you consume more fruit again because of the nutrient content, such as vitamins, minerals. And when it comes to vitamins and minerals, which I will do a talk on, we have to definitely get more of those because vitamins and minerals are going to be the difference maker in terms of your body functions. So even the way you think, how you are reacting to something, or even how you feel, even just being able to do certain things, a lot of times we don't think about it, but having enough vitamins and minerals in our bodies actually help with a lot of chemical processes that we may not have ever thought of. So I want you to keep that in mind. So again, if nothing else, hopefully you learned a little bit more about sugars. That it's not just one all-encompassing term, but there are actually several types of sugars. Like I said, you have simple, then you have complex. Ideally, we want to consume more of the complex because these are actually going to support our bodies. I'm aware that a lot of people, individuals who may be on certain diets, may deem carbs as bad or horrible. But I will tell you, it also depends on number one, if a person originally were consuming simple sugars, because it would be terrible to deem something as bad, especially when you weren't doing it correctly the first time. So I would just say that because I never want to give you any false evidence or any false information, but I do want to share information with you that I know you can use. And I also want you to be healthy, okay? So hopefully, you've learned some information about sugars, different types, like I mentioned earlier, as well as, what types of sugars to consume. I know when it comes to a lot of sweets because I am very aware that the media does its best to persuade you to buy that candy bar, that ice cream. They even throw in psychological cues that may trigger a response from you. I'm aware of that. But I will say that once you have systems in place that can help you to even look past all of those cues, you will be surprised and you also start to value just your own diet. Because, like I say, even for me, when you're starting out trying to do something new for the first time, example, eating fruits, eating more fruits, you may feel like, well, I'm missing out. And to be honest, there's nothing wrong with every now and then occasions where you enjoy sweet treats. Sometimes, even for myself, I don't really have an urge just because I am satisfied with, my diet because it does include fruit, which are to me sweet enough. And it also includes foods as well as like creativity. So you also have to be creative, have to look at the beauty of your diet and even like just a lifestyle as the way I look at it. So again, not to go off topic, but did just want to share with you just some things when it comes to sugar, addressing the question of is it good or is it bad for you. Again, depends on what you're referring to. If it's complex sugars, it's good for you. If it's added sugars, I would caution that because there are recommendations. I think for women, it's 24 grams of sugar from the um, A AH8, which is the American Heart Association, and then for men, I think it's 36 grams. But even with those recommendations, I wouldn't even try to calculate every day. I would just kind of do half, okay? That's what I like to do. Try to do half of that, okay? Because that way, when you actually consume the foods that you need to, that do contain those complex sugars, you'll be surprised that you don't even have to even add sugars to your food. So, like I said, I know there was a lot to cram, and again, this won't be the last time I talk about this topic because I do know that there is more to it. But if you're new, I just wanted to share some information with you to get you to thinking about the next time that you're in your pantry in the grocery store. I want you to look at those labels, especially if you're getting processed foods. I don't recommend getting a lot of processed foods, but if you do decide to get them, I want you to be more intentional when it comes to reading the labels, understanding what the label says. And if you need help, please reach out to me because I do know just different things that you can look out for and even to help you with just making different decisions. And so please feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this information. So, again, if this was your first time checking us out, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button because I do appreciate your feedback. And I want you to know that we are growing. So, one week you may see me just doing a lot of talking. Next week it may be changing up. So I want you to know that we are growing. Website is live and active. Make sure you go to robody.org. That is robody.org. Check out our website. And if you want to financially support us, make sure you go to robody.org/donate. And that way you can give your donation via cash or crypto. Okay. We appreciate your donations, and it helps us to continue to deliver content like this and even deliver higher quality content for you and just helping individuals all around, with improving their nutrition, their bodies, and even just families. Okay. So if you enjoy this content, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. And until next time, I will talk with you later.